Thanks for tuning into episode 43 of OUTOFSCOPE, what businesses can learn from sports teams and the World Series. Joining me today is Steve Overmyer, sportscaster from CBS. What's up, Steve?
Good to see you, man.
Yeah.
You've been on my show. It's only turnabout is fair play.
And now
right?
you're on my show. You have a little bit bigger of an audience. Anyway, looking forward to jumping into it with you today. Longtime friend and guy that knows pretty much everything about sports.
Looking forward to a good conversation, brother.
Awesome.
Sports marketing expert Brian Cristiano.
Brian Cristiano.
Marketers and advertisers and brands always have to keep in mind, you have to play to the state of your audience. Sports fans are arguably the most passionate people probably on the face of this planet. If you're not passionate, do something else. So, Steve Overmyer, long time buddy, haven't seen you in a while.
Brian,
but
congrats on getting married, man. This is the first time I've had a chance
thanks,
to see you
dude.
since then.
Thanks, man. It's good to have you on the show. We've been talking about this for a while. You've been one of the first guys to kind of give me some pointers as a TV professional.
Well, you know what? You have found your niche. You have found I think the proper voice. I love the 360 video that you did, the Oculus Rift video you did as you were riding down the West Side Highway. It was fantastic. I think you've really found a niche, man.
Well, cool. I appreciate you being on the show. And it is the week of the World Series. Last night was Game 1 and the Mets lost, which was kind of it was hard to watch, both because I'm a Mets fan and because it went until 2 o'clock in the morning. But before we get into the show, really, why don't you give me your insight so far into Game 1? What's going to happen tonight in Game 2? Like, what's the short-term insight?
Well, look, I think what we're seeing in this series is you're seeing a great starting pitching staff with the Mets and a great bullpen out of the Royals. So the longer the games go, the bigger advantage it's going to be for the Royals. And that Royals team is they're so scrappy. Boy, they just never give up. They are never down. You have to give yourself a good 3-run cushion to feel comfortable in the final few outs, especially when, you're talking about Jeurys Familia, who was looking like Mariano Rivera coming into this series, and he gave up a home run to Alex Gordon. Just, hats off. Tip your cap to the Royals. Right. If you're a Mets fan, I wouldn't feel bummed out about losing the first game. No. I would feel confident that at the very least, this is going to be a great series. This series isn't going to be won in 4 games. It's not going to be a sweep. It's not going to be 5 games. This is probably coming back to Kansas City. It's going to end up going 7 full games.
Really?
It's all about clutch hitting and getting the pitches in the right spot.
Well, I think that's the thing. As a Mets fan, last night obviously it was sad to watch them lose, but they went 14 innings deep. The pitching looked overall really good.
You're right.
There's obviously some problems with the Mets. The Royals just took advantage and did a better job, of course. But I didn't see it as a negative. It wasn't like, oh, they're falling apart. It was like, wow, there's still a lot of potential here. It's going to be close, though. This is a good World Series.
Yeah, exactly. And listen, the Royals aren't flawless. Eric Hosmer made an error at first base that kind of reminded us a little bit of Billy Buckner, which was incidentally 29 years ago this month, or this week, as a matter of fact. So, they're not flawless. They are not perfect. They can be had. It just has to be a mentality. It has to be some sort of a confidence boost, some play. All it takes is one swing of the bat from those guys, and it can turn the game around, turn the series around.
Let's see. We'll have to see what happens.
Yeah.
So I want to kind of jump into using the World Series, using the Mets, using the Royals as an example, to kind of talk about, what is it like? These are both 2 teams that have struggled for a very long time, have not made it into the championships very much, have not made it into the World Series very often. The Mets have struggled for almost the entire last decade. The last time that they were in the NLCS was 2006.
That's right. 2006 NLCS. They failed to make the postseason
right.
in 07 and 08. And yeah, so here they are in the World Series once again. And I think that this fan base has just been dying for moments like this. You know, they have been coming out of the woodwork. They can finally wear their Mets gear with pride once again. I always feel like a great indicator of fan support is secondary ticket market, something that we really haven't been able to measure except for, say, maybe the past 8 years or so. And, one nugget that I wanted to bring up was in 2009, the Yankees were in the World Series, and their average Game 6 ticket price was about $450 per ticket. For the Mets, standing room only in the secondary market is more than $700 right now. So, and part of that has to do with this is a Mets fan base that is obviously dying to see the Mets in the World Series once again. But I think that's a really good indicator of where the support is going. And if you walk around Manhattan right now, the amount of Mets gear you see all over the place, it's crazy.
So what is it for a team like that? And just to clarify, when you say secondary market, you mean like StubHub or other places as you can purchase a ticket? I just wanted to clarify that for people that weren't sure. But so if we're talking about the Mets, we're talking about like everybody getting excited. You see Mets gear everywhere. The ticket prices are through the roof. Standing room only is nearly $1,000. It's kind of crazy, but awesome in a sense. There's obviously a lot of passion going on here, but it's not like we're talking about a ball club that during most regular seasons is sold out, where they've really clearly struggled in the past. They have a deep fan base, but it's not astronomical. It's not huge, but it's changing now. What is the long-term, or at least short-term implications of a team that struggled to now get into the World Series? What happens moving down the line? What happens next season, the season after? Does that change the ball club from both a business, financial, marketing perspective, or just the ball club in general?
Well, I think success has to be driven by what the team does on the field, but I think another indicator of it as well is the youth of the squad. I would think that a fan base is more ready to get invested in a team if there is a youth movement that's coming up. And there's no secret that the Mets have been in a financial crisis over the past few years because of the Bernie Madoff situation. They've been forced to kind of handcuff themselves a little bit with contracts, so they chose to go with a youth movement. We're going to build through the draft. We're going to build through making trades and trading away some tradable commodities and getting a lot of these young pitchers. And I think it's just easier to invest yourself as a fan if you know that, okay, this team's going to be around for a little while.
Right.
This isn't a bunch of, rent-a-players, 34-year-old rent-a-players who are just having a great season, could give us a World Series. Yeah, I'm going to get my ring. I know that these guys, the average age of that starting pitching staff is 26 years old, 25, 26. Young. So they're very young. They've got a lot of years in front of them. The window is opening for this team, and I think that that's what can really build a fan base, knowing full well that I can safely invest my emotions into this squad and know that it's going to be a good 10-year run for them.
So does this affect both the youngness of the team and getting into the World Series? Does this affect how many people are going to go to games next year? Does this affect how many people are going to buy season tickets? Does this affect how many people are going to buy jerseys and hats, etc.?
Sure. I would imagine the merchandising is going through the roof with the Mets. From the moment that they created those Mets World Series hats, the team store was flooded. Online, is completely flooded with merchandising going through the roof. And yeah, of course, now all of a sudden, it's not just that the Mets are doing well, it's that logo now means something.
Right.
That Mets logo, you can take pride in. You can take pride in wearing that uniform, that jersey once again. That Daniel Murphy jersey is selling on MLB right now for almost $10,000. A game-worn jersey is being sold for $10,000. So fans will take pride in wearing that logo again. So yeah, there absolutely is monetization of the logo.
So with a team like this that struggled for so long, they're now in the World Series. They're going to have a better season next year, at least financially from a ball club perspective. They can probably attract better talent. To be able to continue that momentum, what does it take? Is it continuing to grow the younger players and keep them there so that fan base is connected to the players? Like what is it that you see the potential success being, and how the Mets and or the Royals, for example, as well, because they're kind of in a similar scenario. How do they continue this momentum? And I'm not just saying winning wise, like fan wise.
Yeah, I think what the Mets did when things weren't going well is they made it a very family-oriented ballpark. Everything was laid out for the fans to come, bring the family, let's watch a little baseball, and oh, by the way, there's a baseball game going on. It was almost like secondary to the enjoyment that you would have. You can get a lobster roll here. You can go to Shake Shack if you want.
The food there's awesome.
Yeah, the food there it really is fantastic. Don't stand in line for Shake Shack. You're going to be in there for an hour and a half.
You're going to miss the whole game.
You're going to miss the whole game nonetheless. But now the game has become the centerpiece of it, and the fans are coming out in droves. To be able to get them to continue this over the years, It's really about the youth, and I'm talking about the young fan base. I mean,
Right.
there are some kids out there that have been born and raised Mets fans and have never seen a winning season out of their
Right.
squad.
That's
So
true.
now,
Yeah.
if the Yankees are on the decline and the Mets are on the rise, you're going to get an entire generation of fans that are going to maybe swing towards the Mets
Right.
as opposed to the Yankees. And now, it may be in 10, 15 years, if they keep this going, maybe the Yankees are going to be the old team of New York, and the Mets are the new team of New York. That, in my estimation, if the Mets were smart, that's the way that I would really start to target themselves towards the youth.
That's smart, obviously, because as somebody who grew up in New York and you become a fan, and then
Right.
you become a fan for life. It's
Yeah,
very
I
hard
mean,
to
look-
switch teams.
Yeah, look at the missed opportunities with, let's say, the Brooklyn Nets, a perfect example. Okay, the Knicks have been down. They've been down for a number of years here. Even when they brought in Carmelo Anthony, they have been
Right.
down. And the Nets moved to Brooklyn. It seems like that's going to be the hot team. They got great new logos. They're in Brooklyn. They're going to be cool. But if you don't win, you're not going to create a fan base. So a little bit of a missed opportunity here for the Nets. They tried to go for it. They went with they brought in a big three, and it didn't work. But it's up to the Mets right now to kind of capitalize on this momentum that they have, strike while the iron is hot, and push it forward. And New York is such a crazy market. It's unique other than any other market in the nation because every team has an arch rival in their own city. The Jets, the Giants, the Rangers, the Islanders. The Islanders, another perfect example of a team that can, as they move to Brooklyn, can try to create a new fan base. The Nets, the Knicks, the Yankees, the Mets. I mean, no other city has this right now.
Right.
It's like this civil war, if you will, of fans in every market, or in this particular market, and it's really up to the teams to continue that success, to build that foundation of a fan support.
What is it within the team itself,
Yeah.
the players, the organization, that builds that trust, that builds that momentum, that creates that connection with the fan base? Because the Mets have such, and the Royals as well now, have such a connection with the fan
I think
base.
it's keeping the same players. I think it's not renting players. It's not going out and getting the hot free agents, which is going to help a squad, but you need to have that firm base. And if I were a Mets fan, I would say, all right, well, I know for the next 5 years, I'm going to see Noah Syndergaard, Jacob deGrom, hopefully Matt Harvey,
Yeah.
David Wright, Daniel Murphy. That's actually going to be a big question for the Mets. Are they going to spend to keep Daniel Murphy? Does Daniel Murphy stay for less?
Right.
If we really want to get into the numbers of this, I don't know if we really want to dive into the numbers, but Daniel Murphy is a perfect example of a guy that the Mets are going to have to question. Is he going to be worth what he's going to get on the free agent market?
Right.
A good indicator, a sabermetric stat that is an indicator of a player's value is called WAR, win after replacement.
Okay.
How valuable is this player if you take him away from that roster and you plug in somebody else?
Right.
Now, Daniel Murphy's WAR is always about 1.5. He's about 1.5 times better than somebody that would replace him. Over the course of this postseason, his clutch hitting all of a sudden shoots his WAR through the roof, and by that measure, he's a guy that's going to be making about $6 million a year. And because of what he did in the postseason, and because he was able to hit in the clutch,
Right.
now he might be making 10, 12. Somebody's going to offer him $15 million a year.
Right.
Okay? So now the Mets have to ask themselves, is Daniel Murphy worth that in off the field, in fan support, in continuity, in clubhouse morale?
Right.
Is that worth what we're going to be paying him to be on the field? Because on the field, his numbers during the regular season, he's not a 40 home run kind of guy. He's going to hit 15 home runs per year. His numbers don't support the salary that he's going to get, but is he worth it off the field as well?
Do you think he's worth it off the field?
I think he is.
Do you think the Mets are going to keep him?
I think they will.
Yeah.
And on top of that, he's also said, I've made enough money. I'm willing to stay here with the Mets. And this is a rare thing. I'm willing to stay with the Mets for a hometown discount. And if he could, that means that there's something happening right there in that clubhouse that you just don't want to leave, because you take Daniel Murphy and you put him in another clubhouse, you put him on another team, he might not do what he's doing right now.
Right.
But it's about the cohesive unit coming together and how these parts fit together that makes them it works so well together.
So that's something that I always come back to and talk about is passion, right? If your team, if everyone around you is passionate, people work harder, they care more. Obviously, in this scenario, if he's willing to potentially take a pay cut or not take a pay raise
Right.
as much as he could get on the free market, then that means that he's passionate, the team's passionate, there's a good culture going on in the Mets.
See, you just nailed it right there. I think that's a really interesting point because so there are some players, you look at the team and when you think of the Mets, you might think of, again, DeGrom, Harvey, Syndergaard, David Wright. But there are some players that are unsung heroes on that squad, not just because of what they do on the field, but what they do in the clubhouse. Curtis Granderson is a perfect example of this. This is a guy who is considered maybe one of the best clubhouse guys in baseball, and it's not because he's always positive, which, by the way, he's always positive. It's not like this naive positivity. It's he's accountable when mistakes are made. He's right there to lift one of his teammates up. He's there to pat someone on the back or light a fire under their butts if he needs to. Okay, he's almost like a manager in the clubhouse. He makes everyone around him better. He is a unifier. He is a cohesive. He makes this clubhouse cohesive. He brings people together. He helps. He just kind of steers people in the right direction. Juan Uribe, another perfect example. Michael Kadire, another guy that's just like that. So when you bring in people that are, I don't know, just guys that will assist everyone else and make everyone else around them better, it creates this team chemistry that you just cannot account for. There is no sabermetric, there is no advanced stat that can account for chemistry. And I think the reason we're seeing success with this team is not that they have the best players in Major League Baseball. That might be the Washington Nationals, a team that just can't get out of their own way because they don't have team chemistry. Team chemistry is going to push you so much further than individual talent. The whole is greater than the sum of their parts.
And this is where I think we can tie this back into business, because what can companies, what can businesses, what can entrepreneurs, whatever, learn from looking at a scenario like this where the Mets might not have the best players as far as overall is concerned, but obviously the cohesiveness of the team, the passion of the team, what goes on in the locker room behind the scenes where it pushes everyone further to do their best and to just be amazing at what they've done and to get all the way into the World Series. What is it that a business or an entrepreneur or whatever can take from that and learn and say, okay, how do I, is it about keeping everyone on the team, whether it's a sport or whether it's a business? Is it keeping everyone motivated and passionate and excited? What is it?
I mean, I would hope that the people in power are smart enough to identify those with an attitude of gratitude. Okay, if it's a mixture, if it's 6 1, half dozen to the other, which person you want to hire, which person you want to bring in, if you bring in someone that's a little bit more positive, a little bit more of a unifier, like I was saying with Curtis Granderson, that's going to make everyone around them better as well. So I think that is an undervalued attribute, not only for players, but for life in the business world, really life in general, isn't it?
I think it applies everywhere, right? I mean, if you don't like where you are, you're not going to put it all in, right? So if there's Mets players, if the whole team likes where they are, they're going to go all in, and that's what they did this year.
And again, it brings people together. You want to fight for your teammate. You want to trust that person is going to do their job. It just makes life so much easier if I'm not constantly looking over my shoulder, wondering whether or not you're looking around right now. I'm wondering, are these people doing their jobs?
Guys, you working?
Are you guys working hard right now? If I'm not constantly looking over my shoulder, wondering whether or not the guy behind me is doing their job, I don't have to worry that they're doing it well. I know that they are. It opens me up to allow myself to do a better job myself. So I feel like that's a very overlooked attribute in the business world.
I agree. I mean, I don't think a lot of people.
Maybe something that you can learn from sports.
I think so. I mean, it makes complete sense to me, and it's something that's just so hard to quantify. And I think from a business perspective, and dealing with so many people that I deal with, they know that it's important, but they don't try to quantify it. They don't think about it, so it becomes a secondary piece to the business. Where and I want your perspective on this, because as somebody who's spent over a decade in the locker rooms with the Mets, with the Jets, with the Giants, with other many professional teams, you've seen it all. You've seen these ball clubs change, the Mets specifically. What is it that you have seen change in ball clubs that maybe didn't have that cohesiveness 5 years ago, 8 years ago, 3 years ago, and do now?
It's trust in your fellow employees. It's trust in the teammates that they can do their job and that they're not going to point fingers. It's pointing thumbs, not fingers. Taking accountability for your own actions, acknowledging when someone makes a mistake, but not pointing it out. Not throwing them under the bus. Knowing that you can take a chance, and if you fail, you're not going to be ridiculed, and if you fail, somebody else is going to pick you up.
Right.
And that comes from socialization. You know, I mean, we live in a world right now where we are kind of somewhat socially inept. You know, we're all in our own little worlds on our smartphones. We're typing on things individually, but if you create a social structure where everyone is coming together to fight for one another, it makes you want to go the extra mile for your teammate, knowing exactly what your job is and knowing what their job is as well. And when they falter a little bit, pick them up. Right. Because you know that there's going to come a point where you're going to need their help too.
What's a couple of things that you can connect, taking everything that you know from sports, what we're talking about the passion and the clubhouses and everything, what's something that you can translate into like a business tip, like something to like keep in mind? And it can apply to both sports and business or personal. What's like one or two like little nuggets that you've learned over the years?
Oh man, you know, I think a lot of it is, you know, just, you know, fight with your teammates, you know, figure out who is on your side. Realize that, you know, we're all in this together. Right. You know, it's kind of a unity mentality. You know, we are all fighting. We're going for the same goal. Identify what your goal is, identify how to get there, and then help one another do it. Right. It's not about who's going to get all of the praise, who's going to get the glory. Well, I tell you what, there's a lot of glory to go around when you win. Right. Not a lot of glory to go around when you lose. Somebody has a 100-yard game. I remember 2006, you might have been here for that. You might have been shooting. It was the New York Jets lost to the Detroit Lions 41-0. But Leon Washington ran for 100 yards. And it was
I remember that game.
So after the game, I'm doing a live interview with Pete Kendall, who was an offensive lineman. He didn't want to do the interview anyways. He's an old Bostonian dude. He didn't want to talk about this at all. So I'm like,
one-word answers.
One-word answers. I'm like, Pete, what happened in this game? Was it embarrassment? Could you say anything to the players afterwards? How did you know? I mean, we guy gives you a one-word answer. You like put on the spot. You can't figure out how to say. Could you say anything? I don't know. What do you want me to say? It was an embarrassment. Leon Washington had 100 yards. Good for Leon. What do you want me to say here? Huh? You know, I mean, that's the mentality. Leon Washington had 100 yards in that game, but who cares? They lost 41-0. Everyone wins. Praise goes all around.
Right. So it's about going all in, unifying the team, and having a common, clear goal that everyone's working towards.
That's exactly it. I think you just nailed it. I think you could be a coach.
Not for sports. I know a lot about sports, but not nearly enough to coach anything or even give my real opinion on it. Last thought. Who's going to win the World Series?
Oh, man. Baseball is so hard to predict. It is so hard to predict. This is so tough. I know, it really is. Because, listen, my dad once told me that the less a man makes declarative statements, the less likely he is to look like an idiot in retrospect. But I guess I will. I've been sticking to this. I guess I'm going to have to stick with what I said before, which is Mets in 5. I think that means that they're going to have to win 4
That's
straight.
Hard.
Now
You're putting them on the spot.
4 straight. So it's going to be tough for them to beat the Royals in 5 games. But I still see the Mets just have this. They have something. They just have something. In that clubhouse, you see something special, a belief, a trust in one another. I think that they're going to pull it out.
Well, it's finally been an exciting season to be a Mets fan.
I know,
so
right?
At least it's been a while.
But the key to winning in any sport is when you get an opportunity, which are rare and few and far between, you've got to meet the moment.
Yeah, you got to be an opportunist.
You have to meet the moment. You don't always get to the World Series. These guys might never make it to the World Series once again. You know, you can't count on them ever being there again. In 1984, Dan Marino took the Miami Dolphins, to the Super Bowl. And you're like, they lost the Super Bowl. That's all right. They'll be back again. Never went back.
They haven't been back.
Yeah. So, got to meet the moment.
Well, cool, man. Steve.
Good seeing you,
Pleasure
brother.
having on the show, man.
Always
This was fun.
Always fun.
Yeah, good to see you.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks so much for coming on.
Vice versa, I'll have you on my show again soon.
Dude, I'd love to. Way more sense. Okay, cool. Sorry, dude.
Usually,
I would only feel bad if I
to
hadn't seen you do this 1,000 times as well.
No, oh, please. Are you kidding me?
I've been on that side of the camera while you've been doing this, so I don't feel as
Lord Almighty, no, of
bad.
course not.